A new program gets the green light. The plan is ambitious. Build the context graph for the whole institution for every line of business all at once. Step 1. Buy the platform. That plan is the fastest way to fail at this. Let me show you the slower, narrower way that actually works. Here's the trap, and it's seductive because it feels decisive. You scope the context graph as one enormous program. Every domain, every line of business, one big tool purchase to make it real. And it stalls. Nobody owns any single definition. The conflicts are too many to resolve. The tool ships and the content rots inside it because the hard part was never the tool. The way to succeed is narrower and slower than you'd guess. 1 or 2 bounded domains. Real owners. Built-in phases where each phase earns the right to the next. So let's walk the roadmap. 3 phases. Then the 4 ways people get it wrong. Quick recap, 30 seconds. Over the last 5 episodes, we built the machine. Discovery captures how the institution actually works. A development lifecycle governs change. Learning loops promote experience into a tested knowledge. Activation delivers it to every consumer. And governance keeps quality. Drift, lineage, versioning, and approval live across all of it. That's the what. This episode is the how to adopt, the sequence, and the traps. Phase 1, Foundation. 1 to 2 quarters. Don't boil the ocean. Pick 1 or 2 domains that are both high value and well-bounded. Regulatory reporting metrics. The servicing operations for a single product, something with edges you can see. Inside that domain, establish the substrate. Canonical definitions for the contested critical data elements, the ones 2 teams define differently. The core ontology linking customers, accounts, and transactions. Golden source mappings with lineage. And a named accountable owner for each. Take our running example. Committed exposure, the metric treasury and finance have been quietly computing 2 different ways. In phase 1, you pick the golden source, you write the one definition, you name who owns it, and you trace its lineage. Here's why you start with the loudest conflicts. Resolving them delivers visible value on its own. Before any AI is involved, 2 divisions finally agree on a number that goes to the board. And it buys you something just as important, credibility with risk and internal audit early. Bring them in at design, not at review. A control they help shape is a control they'll stand behind. Foundation first. 1 domain, agreed definitions named owners. Phase 2, encode the procedures and the controls around them. 2 to 3 quarters. Now that the domain has agreed facts, you capture how work is actually done in it. Start from observed work, not from the policy binder. Extract candidate procedures from completed cases and event logs. That's the discovery capability from episode 8. Remember, everything it produces is a candidate, not canon. Take the AML anti-money laundering, alert disposition workflow. Discovery maps how investigators actually clear alerts. Then you codify the approval matrix and the policy constraints around it. Who can disposition? What requires a second set of eyes? Then you stand up the development lifecycle from episode 9, drafted, tested, independently reviewed, approved, deployed, retired. AI drafts and tests. Humans approve. Effective challenge, preserved by design. And treat the output exactly like control documentation, because that's what it is. Owned, versioned, recertified on a cadence, not a document you write once and file. Facts, then the procedures and controls that act on them. Phase 3, operate the loops. This one is ongoing. You connect the AI systems you've deployed back to the graph. Root corrections, exceptions, and verified facts through the promotion process from episode 10. A clarification becomes a documented assumption. A repeated exception becomes a policy provision. The graph gets smarter from real use, under governance, not by accident. Then instrument governance as live monitoring, quality, drift, lineage, version conflicts, pending approvals. The 5 concerns from episode 12. And here's the move that keeps this from becoming a parallel bureaucracy. Feed that monitoring into your existing risk committee and board reporting, not a new structure, the one you already run. Now you expand, domain by domain, and each new domain inherits the prior one's assets and patterns, the definitions, the ontology, the lifecycle. The 10th domain starts where the first 9 left off. That's the roadmap. One idea runs underneath all 3 phases, and it's the one most programs miss. This is organizational design, not tooling. Assign ownership. Every canonical definition and every procedure has a person accountable for it. Define the propagation policy for changes that cross lines of business. When Treasury changes a definition that finance depends on, who decides and how does it flow? And make contribution and recertification part of business, as usual, with incentives. If keeping context current is a side project nobody has measured on, it decays. The tool was never the hard part. The accountability is. Keep that in mind because all 4 anti-patterns are really the same mistake, treating this as something you buy instead of something you organize. Anti-pattern 1, 4-point solutions, stitched together. You buy a memory tool, a retrieval tool, a process mining tool, and a semantics tool, and you wire them up. On a slide, it looks like a context graph. It isn't. There's no shared governance underneath, no single owner of a definition, no one lifecycle, no one approval path. So you get exactly what Episode 7 warned about, context islands. Each tool ends up with its own quietly different definition of the same metric. The outputs contradict each other and trust erodes, internally and in front of an examiner. Integration is not governance. Anti-pattern 2, the documentation sprint. You spin up a one-time push to capture everything, all the definitions, all the procedures, and declare victory when the binder is full. The problem is that a one-time capture starts decaying the moment it's done. Regulation shifts, policy changes, the business moves. Within a quarter, the binder describes a bank that no longer exists. This is the compounding versus accumulating idea made concrete. A sprint accumulates. What compounds is the life cycle, the ongoing drafting, review, approval, and recertification cadence. The life cycle isn't the overhead around the product, it is the product. Anti-pattern 3, scoping the whole thing to one vendor's ecosystem. You build the graph inside a single platform, in that platform's format, consumable only by that platform's tools. This breaks the entire point. The value of the graph is that it's shared. One canonical source, many consumers. Bind it to one vendor and you cap its value at that vendor's boundary. The advisor copilot from a different vendor can't reach it. The surveillance tool can't reach it. And to concentrate third-party risk, your most defensible asset now rises and falls with one supplier. Episode 11's answer stands. One canonical governed representation translated into each consumer's format. The graph outlives any individual tool. Shared, or it isn't a graph. Anti-pattern 4, and this is the one that quietly destroys defensibility, letting AI approve its own context. All series long, we've said it the same way. AI drafts, tests, and simulates. Humans adjudicate ambiguity and approve. Here's what it looks like when you break it. Remove the human from approval, and you remove effective challenge. And the moment effective challenge is gone, so is defensibility. There's no independent review to point to. Bring back the examiner's card. Who approved this? The AI did? That answer ends the conversation, and not in your favor. AI drafts. A human approves. That line is not negotiable. So let's name the misconception out loud, because it's the one that funds the wrong plan. The misread is, buy a platform and you're done. Start with a purchase and the rest follows. It doesn't. A platform with no agreed definitions, no named owners, and no lifecycle is an empty shelf with a price tag. The tool was never the hard part. Start with one bounded domain and an ownership model. Build it in phases, where each phase earns the next. This is organizational design, not a purchase. One way to check your roadmap is honest. Walk the examiner's 4 questions. Who approved this? That's your Phase 2 lifecycle. What's its lineage? Phase 1 substrate. What depends on it? Your propagation policy. When was it last reviewed? Phase 3 recertification. If a phase can't answer its question, it isn't done. The roadmap is the answer to the exam. Here's where we are. We made the strategic case, drew the anatomy, counted the stakes, built the 5 capabilities, and now you have the roadmap to adopt them, and the 4 traps to avoid on the way. One question remains, and the risk committee will ask it every quarter. How do you know it's working? Is this thing compounding or just accumulating? Next episode, we make that measurable. I'll see you there.